Alrighty, it's been a while since we've done one of these stringing style videos, but we had Jordan ship in his Elite Enlist and mentioned he'd like to see a video on it. So here we are. We got a 60-pound Elite Enlist. He sent us a QAD rest to put on it, a Bloodsport Hunter arrow, and we're going to do a module change. We've got him some custom strings ready, so I'm going to bolt the QAD on just to get so I can stick the cord in the cable when I put the strings on, and then we'll go over to the press and get everything put on, and then tune her up, get it ready to ship back to Jordan. If you're local to us, we're in Anderson, South Carolina, upstate South Carolina area, and we'll be happy to tune your bow or anything you need archery wise. If you're not local, we've had a lot of folks ship in their bows since we started doing these YouTube videos, so just give us a call. All our contact info will be in the description. Be happy to help you however we can. Okay, got that on. I'm gonna go ahead and get the center shot just eyeballed, and then we'll do all the fine details shortly. If I can find an Allen wrench. I got a mess. Let's see here. We've tuned on a few of these Enlist bows, and they've always been a nice bow to deal with. Usually no kind of issues. So let's go over to the bow press, get his new strings on, modules on, then we'll come back over here and go through the whole tuning process. Alrighty, we made it over here to the bow press. I'm going to snatch these old strings off real quick, and we're going to do a quick module change. Get the new strings on. He's got a nice set of natural, he went with a natural color BCY material with a kiwi pinstripe. So that looks pretty sharp. Something out of the ordinary. I like it when people do something different. We do so many like fluorescent green and red strings, it just kind of gets old, so it's nice to see something different. So I got these cables off. I'll package them up so he can keep them as a backup. I'm going to swap out the modules. Here's what I need right here. We'll fast forward through this part. Y'all have seen me do all this 100 times, and then we'll get to the good stuff over at the vise. Okay, and now the mods are changed, and we'll put on the strings and cables and get it over to our vise. Alright, new strings and cables on, peep sights in, silencers back in the string. I think we got everything ready to go. Let's go loop it, get his peep tied in, arrow rest leveled, center shot set, rest cord set, and then we'll fire it through the paper. Alrighty, here we are. We'll go ahead and take his arrow, stick it in here. Do a quick center shot check. I know we're already in the ballpark. What I'm going to do to start with is line the string up, center the riser, look down at the arrow. It needs to come to the right just barely. Alright. And then I've showed you all this before, but just as a quick check. Now, if you have a home shop and want to play around, these little lasers are good. You bolt them on. Here, I'll show you how it works, just because I don't think I've used it on here before. This sort of gets it perfect, but I usually get it close and then know that when I get to the paper tune stage I can make a fine adjustment if needed. But if you get one of these lasers, you can get one from OMP, October Mountain Products, and they're not all that much money, but you put it where your sight goes, turn it on, and then ultimately you screw it in or out till you get it touching the string in the center, and then you flip it around to the end of the arrow and you just center it up on the end of the arrow. So that gives you a perfect center shot adjustment. Let me get it back. There we go. So I've got it all the way at the tip of the arrow, and I'm just making sure that I put the laser dead center of that arrow. That's where it's at. I'm going to tighten it back down. And again, I think what a lot of people don't account for is the torque that is put into the limbs going to full draw. You know, these cables load up, they're being pulled over here by this cable rod, and to a very small degree they're pulling the limbs over, which can change your center shot a little bit. So if you do something like this and it needs a small adjustment on the paper tuner, don't freak. It's just, that's sort of what's going on. Some people I see in the online groups all the time, people are asking, you know, what's the center shot for a Matthews whatever, and everybody's like, oh, you know, you don't set it at 13/16. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. I don't necessarily go for all that. I think it's you know, 13/16 on that particular bow will get you close. Good starting point. But each bow has a little different limb deflection and a little different something going on, so that's just my 2 cents. Alright, I got my level here, I got my string level. I'm going to get my arrow level. And I'm going to put this thing dead level all the way around. With most modern bows, you know, they have what you'd call level knock travel. And that's kind of how you want to set them up, especially with the D-loop. Put everything level, start with that. You may end up eventually a tad tail high, but most of the time level makes it work. So I'm going to tie my little nocking points that'll go inside the loop right here where I got my arrow perfect. I would probably recommend a BCY 3D serving thread for this. It just seems to work well. Tie a couple knots back and forth. Y'all can look at my videos before this. I think I've done a couple where I did a real good close-up shot of how I do this, but for those of you that normally watch, y'all know what I'm doing. Get that tied. Tie it off. So that's my point where I know if the knock hits that, my arrow's level. So I'm going to get the arrow out of the way, burn this off. Good to go. Push it back up. Tie one on the bottom. Always leave a tiny little gap, because if you don't, you will get some knock pinch and it'll want to pick the arrow up off the rest. So I'm just leaving a tiny little bit of clearance there. And like I've said before, at full draw with these shorter bows, you know, it's such an angle, you can pull it back and have somebody try to wiggle this arrow, and this little bit of extra clearance, it's gone away. So get this bottom one tied good. If you're new and you hadn't seen my stuff before, we would appreciate a subscribe. Hit the old subscribe button to our channel. We do a weekly live feed, a weekly podcast, and when time allows, we do a Sunday video like this one. So I'm going to put a little bitty dot of glue over these knots. I'm not getting this on the center serving itself, because if I wanted to take this off, I don't want it to ruin that center serving. So I'm putting the smallest little dot. I had got where I was using the brush. You can get the glue with the brush that comes with it. I guess the COVID mess that's going on right now, our couple local places where I was buying it hadn't had it in quite some time, so went back to the old trusty Gorilla style glue. Let that dry for a minute. All I did was hit it with some accelerator. You can buy that at Hobby Lobby. Several archery companies sell it, but it's about 2 to 3 times as high as the same. It's the same. You can smell it. It's the same stuff. Let that dry. I'm gonna go ahead and flip down my rest. Take my arrow level off. He's shooting a Bloodsport Hunter. We're going to be shooting 60 pounds. This is a 350 spine. It looks like a 100 grain tip. I hadn't even checked what the draw length is yet, but I'll let you know in a minute. But we're going to get our loop on. Got a nice kiwi loop to match the accent colors of that string. Take his old string and line his Peep back up, get it tied in with some kiwi serving. Time the rest, and then we can see what it does through the paper. Most of these Elite bows don't give much trouble. They're some of the easier bows to tune. Pretty simple, straightforward stuff. So I'm going to get this loop going here. My favorite loop material, y'all heard me say it before, but it is the BCY number 24 material. The 23 material is a thinner material, and we use it a lot if we have to replace a QAD rest cord. Get a nice little burnt bulb on the end there so it don't slide through. Let it cool off, and then I like these two sets of pliers for stretching my loops out. Now I've got all the fancy pliers. I've got the Viper pliers and the outer limit pliers and all that, but I've found they will dig the loop into the center serving. You really hammer down, and it's not the end of the world because the loop's over the top of it, but what it'll do is cinch it down and separate that center serving, and then you can't make a loop adjustment when you make a Peep adjustment and your loop gets crooked. But these little crooked pliers I get at Harbor Freight for a couple bucks, and these Craftsman pliers, they're probably my favorite. I think I've linked them in the video before, but they're stainless so they don't really rust, and they're just small, so if you got a smaller loop you can get it in there and then work it out. I mean, I don't have anything against using the Viper style pliers, but a lot of times we'll have bows come in. I mean, somebody must have just, as hard as they could mashed it, and we'll end up having to take the string off, replace the center serving, the loop, and that's on any string. That's not just, you know, one particular anything. It's just it don't, you know, if you put 50 or 80 pounds of pressure on these, I don't know what number it would really be. It's going to dig in. So I just get it snug, but ultimately I still want to be able to work it around my knot ties. And in the future, if I ever needed to change this loop, I got my knot ties so nothing moves. I just cut the loop free, put a new loop on, and as you move this Peep or these silencers or anything, it can kick that loop around, and I want to be able to straighten it back up. So I'm just going to get it good and snug. We'll take the old string, line up my loop points, and I'm going to slide that Peep down. Now, according to what kind of Peep you got, a lot of the G5 Peeps I would not slide down because they will cut the string. There's a, you know, it's one of those, if there's some kind of resistance going on, you know, I'll press it. I've seen some people comment in my other videos, I can't believe you just slid that Peep down like that. You know, we've done this for a while. I guess a while's 22 or 3 years now, and I mean, I've had my fair share of oopsies, but we have learned a lot of lessons on how to not have that happen. I know they've redesigned those. This is not a G5 Peep. This looks like a rad Peep. They've redesigned those G5 Peeps and all this stuff, but I just had so many bad experiences with them cutting strings and having burrs back in the day. I don't, if somebody's got one, I try to tell them to switch. That's just my 2 cents. But anyway, I just went off on a wild goose chase there. If it's not catching the fibers, then we're good. Alright, so I got it tied in. I'm going to lean the bow forward. I might have to move you back a hair. like this. There we go. And I'm going to tie in the Peep with some kiwi serving thread. I'm going to try to do this. I'm sure on this knot I'm going to get in your way, but we'll see after the fact. I'm just going to do a basic serving knot on this. This is the way I do it. Like if I absolutely do not want this Peep sight to move. Some folks come in and they're kind of, I feel like they may need some adjustment, or they're wishy-washy about where they want their Peep, and I'll do it a little different way so we can slide it if we really want to. But usually this way it don't move. Okay. Get that good and snug. We'll grab a razor. And I'm sorry, I can't really see. It's just me here. I don't know if this has been in focus or not. I've tried to keep it in focus, but it's probably hunting the back wall. I'll do a close-up when I get done here. We'll burn both sides of that serving. Good to go. Take another piece, do the same thing on the top. I'm going to back you up a little more so I can get over here. But there's so many ways to tie in a Peep. I mean, sometimes we have people come in and say, can you do it like this? I'll do whatever. But usually I do my personal bows this way, or I'll tie the bottom and run it up the side. The only thing I got against that is if you're out in the field and it were to get nicked or break or whatever, the whole thing's coming loose. You know, this way you could retie one side and be good to go if something bad happened. So there's that. We got to put the draw stops back on this thing. We've had a lot of folks with elite bows come in tinkering with their bows at home, take the draw stops off and draw it, and it'll lock it full draw, so be careful of that. Okay, so here's something else to talk about. Our Peep was straight. We tied it in and now it's crooked. And we get a lot of calls about this. People don't understand. We compressed the twist or where the Peep sight's at. It was, let's just say the string was coming back together right past where these knots were at. Well, I don't want to put my knots, 3 inches from the Peep sight or 2 inches or whatever it happened to be. So when you tie that thing in, it's going to compress the twist and it's going to twist it a little bit. We're going to fix that. We're going to probably take a half twist out to fix it. But we get a lot of calls, I got my Peep in, got it straight, tied it in, and now it's crooked. And we're like, right, what do you want us to do about it? And the problem comes in is after you get it straight after this point, then if it starts twisting, you probably got a problem. But most of the time, this exact thing happens. Take a half twist or a twist, according to whatever it takes. She's good to go. If it were to have been completely backwards, I'd flip the Peep around completely, but it's not. It's just a little sideways. But anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there because we get so many calls about it, and people don't understand that sort of thing. But let's go. I'm going to put the draw stops back in real quick. I guess I can do that while we're chatting. And then we'll go over to the draw board, see what our cam timing looks like. Usually on these elite bows, I think he put his note set to the max let off. He did. So what I'm going to do here is slide these draw stops as far out as possible away from each other. And that's sort of how we'll time the bow and know that he's got max let off. Usually we don't have to do a whole lot as far as the cam timing goes because when we make the strings here, we have a system that measures them literally, you know, down to the thousandth. But the only thing that can change it a little bit, and people don't think about this, let me back up a little bit. What can change it is, so we've got two identical cables here, but obviously we've got one cable sitting a little bit in front of the other so that they don't rub. So technically this cable would probably need an extra twist versus this one that's going further out. So that's why sometimes you might need to put a twist or two to kind of account for that. And then you're good to go. But we're going to see where we start. I hadn't done any of that yet. I'm just going to put it on the drawboard and see where we end up. Stops are on. Let's go to the drawboard. Alright, here we are at the drawboard. Get a lot of questions about how we got this drawboard set up. Ultimately, we've got a big lag bolt in the stud. We've got our last chance scale hooked to a block and tackle that goes way up there. And it's my favorite way, it's my favorite drawboard. Now we also have, I'm gonna let this sit here a minute. Now, excuse the mess of arrows and junk, but Lancaster sells one that we use occasionally if we got a couple bows we're working on at the same time, and this one's pretty affordable. You can get it on Lancaster's website, but I like this one. So I'm going to try to hold this phone and show you the cam timing at the same time. It's probably going to be a little bouncy since it's just me here. I'll tell you what, let me get a tripod and I'll try to just set it up right here. Alright, I got it on a tripod. I don't like to not have an extra hand to be able to hold the bow, so we're on 60, right at 60.9 pounds, so we're good poundage wise. Let's see here. Now let's check our draw stops. They are actually right on the money. We'll check it again, we'll back off. Barely touching. Barely touching. So I'm gonna, this is where two people come in handy. But we got our stop touching there. We got our stop touching there. So we don't need any additional twist or anything. All I got to do now is manipulate my QAD cord to get it perfect. Burn the end of it, tie it in, and we'll go paper tune. So I'm gonna put the phone up for a minute and do that. I'll meet you back over at the vise. Alrighty, here we are back over here. Got the rest timed. I'm gonna see if I can turn this sideways. Maybe. Well, you can't really see it like that, can you? I'll try to keep it like that. Reach over this thing. I'm sure the focus is probably going crazy. I'm just on the phone today. I didn't drag out all the fancy cameras. I usually have to have a second person when I get all that out. What I'm going to do is get my little knot started here, slide it down to the top of that rest cord. And I'm doing the same knot I did on that Peep sight. Just a basic serving knot, because I've just found it to not really want to move. Get it snugged up here. I have really began to like, we've talked about it before, but the limb driven style drop away rest, just because they seem a little easier to tune. You don't have to worry as much about these cords stretching because you can tighten it up real easy. And I think in the next few years, I mean, you've already seen a lot of folks going to them, but I think it'll continue to go that way. I'm curious. I think QAD is about due for a big limb driven style rest, in my opinion, because, you know, as far as popularity, I would say, at least in our area, the QAD and the Whisker Biscuit are the two most popular rests going. And I mean, from bows I've had shipped in from kind of all over the country, it looks to be the same way. But I really have started liking the limb driven stuff. I'll cut that. We'll cut that. I'm gonna burn it. Okay, let's go see if she'll paper tune. Alrighty, we got a 415 grain Bloodsport arrow. These look like A7 modules, which would make this 27-inch draw, about 61 pounds. Full let off. We'll paper tune it, and then we'll see what kind of speed we get. So let's start with the paper tune. All of our local hardware stores are out of the paper I normally use for our paper tuner, which is that brown paper you've seen before. I found some white paper, but it's so thin, I just don't like it. It tears, it's weird. So I've taped a thicker piece of paper up here if you're wondering why it's a little different this time. That's why. Let's see what it does. Boom, yow. That looks good. I'm going to shoot it one more time just to confirm. But it is looking good. Oh yeah. It don't get much better than that. Let's see how fast she's going. And then I'll show you everything. Okay, any guesses on our speed? 415 grain arrow. Let's see what she does. 278. That's not bad at all. Bingo! Check that out. That's beautiful. And 278. I just realized my phone was not recording for my little outro, but I just caught it as I was putting this video together. I was just going to say, if you need anything, give us a call, give us an email. Our contact stuff is in the description. Thanks for watching. Hit the old subscribe button, and we'll see y'all soon.